Hello, everyone. This is Raise Your Voice as part of the Fans First Sports Network. I am your host, Brett Rutherford, joined as always by my good friend and co host, Darby Robinson. What's up, Darby?
Hello, Brett. How's it
We
going?
good. The baseball has been good, but you know what? The weather is
Mm.
starting to cool down a little bit here in Raleigh. So we went to a Durham Bulls game last night, and we were not completely just sweating the whole time. It was nice.
That's nice.
We did not get to see Junior Caminero, but maybe something even better, Bob Seymour. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about Bob Seymour today. He's kind of an enigma right now for the Durham
he
Bulls.
is he's an enigma for everybody because I think nobody knew his name until like 3 weeks ago, and he's started to hit every
Exactly.
home run possible.
Well, before we get into it, if you're watching this on YouTube and if you have yet to subscribe, go ahead and do that. Turn on that notification button so you can join us in the comments every time we go live. We are also available wherever you get your podcast, Apple Podcast. Leaving a rating and review is the best way to spread what we do to more and more Rays fans. If you really want to say thank you, patreon.com/raise your voice, where you can become a member for as little as $1 a month. And don't worry, for anybody that has signed up, even if it was just for 1 month, we've got a membership perk coming your way very soon. So stay tuned for that. All right, Darby, I'm ready to have the funeral. I think I held on a little longer than you did, but I'm ready to have the funeral for the 2024 Rays, who at the time of recording are 6.5 games back from an American League wildcard spot with 3 teams ahead of them for the 3rd spot. So I've given up hope. We did an episode earlier this season. We just said the Rays weren't good enough, and that has held true. I thought they were maybe good enough to be the worst team in the postseason, but it's just not happening this year, and I'm ready to put it to bed.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, just this last series, this last homestand. There's a very good likelihood that the Rays will just narrowly, with 1 win against Baltimore, avoid the dreaded completely swept homestand. But with the red hot Arizona Diamondbacks coming to town with the best offense in baseball right now, facing off against, in the second half, the 12th best starter ERA, a kind of middling starting pitching rotation, and the worst offense in baseball in the second half. This Arizona really they have to take at least 2 out of 3. They are surging in their playoff push. If they don't take 2 out of 3, this would be a huge disappointment for them. The Rays just clearly don't seem like they are playing for much right now. Like on the field, like this is a lineup. This is a team that feels broken and beaten and defeated. They are going into each game ready to lose as a lineup. Like I think this, but we've seen this all season, and it's one of those things where for the longest time we kind of were like hoping to see. I think that what's interesting is like since like the second half, right? Those are the statistics, the lowest scoring offense in baseball. But like if you stretch that out to the whole season, they have the 3rd fewest runs scored in all of baseball, just ahead of the Miami Marlins and the Chicago White Sox. And I think the Chicago White Sox winning the season series, like that was like the sign that like it wasn't then that Eric Neander was like, we're broken. We gotta shuffle and look for the future. But that was where I was starting to be like, all right, is this team just dead right here? Like, is this closing the window? Because if you extend it out, like this isn't just like the second half, right? You can't just say like, oh, they did a reshuffle, they did a rebuild, they traded Randy and Paredes and Jason Adams. So like that, this has been this has been a bad offense all season long. With Paredes, with Randy, this has been a bad offense. The bullpen has actually gotten better, so weirdly, but they have the best bullpen ERA in baseball in the second half. But this offense, just the whole season is not there. So this is, I think, it was a big hill to climb, to run up. You needed like to rattle off like a 10-game winning streak at some point during the season. The time has sort of run out. Like even a 10-game winning streak now, you're probably only putting yourself into still outside lane contention in September.
Yeah.
The runway just isn't there. Like even getting hot with this many teams not in your division, the runway's not there. The Rays have done an amazing comeback in September. We have seen that, but that's against in-division rivals with many more games to play against division rivals. That is not this. It would be they would have to play exact opposite as how they played the entire year for a month and a half to have a chance. And even then it may not be enough because you have AL Central teams who get to beat up on the White Sox and they get to beat up on other AL Central teams. You have the American League West. This is just it's just too big of a hill to climb.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you went through June and parts of July and you'd won like every series and you made up no ground. And and I think that's when I realized like it's just not going to be the year. The American League, I think, is more talented this year. It's a pretty good top 7 or 8 teams in the league.
The worst teams in the American League this year is the White Sox. Obviously, they're in an atrocious mess. I don't even know if Oakland you can really count. Like they're like obviously rebuilding, but like they're pesky. They're a tough. They're like a rebuilding bad team that's you don't really want to face. Like the White.
Well,
right
you
now,
can see the pieces.
Are the White Sox
I don't know if it'll all work.
Are the White Sox the only team right now in the American League that teams are saying like, yeah, I want to face them? Like the Fangraphs had an article. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, especially without Trout. Okay, yeah, Angels too.
Yeah.
Zach Neto's playing really well. They got a shortstop of the future there. That's pretty good.
Yeah, but I think the Angels are worse than their record, and I think their Pythagorean would show the same too.
They're pretty. They've always been a team that I feel like teams aren't exactly intimidated by, and that's when they even had the 2 best players of a generation. Yeah. So, but that's about it, right? So Angels and White Sox, because like the Blue Jays are a bad team this year, but they're still talented enough with really good young talent that like they could absolutely win a series. Oakland has won series that people have not expected to win. The Texas Rangers are a below 500 squad, but they won the World Series last year. Like they're underperforming. They have regressed to the mean, and I think a lot of people saw that regression happening. But that's still a good team. And like even the Rays, like you do look at the Rays as like a bad team that you know that any of your pitchers can go like 15 Ks and 8 shutout. Yeah. But you could get 15 Ks and shutout. And like the Astros only had 2 hits yesterday and they still won a game. That's awfully close. And like they're a clearly better team, but they still lost the series to this team since the trade deadline at home. So even the Rays, who are another under 500 team, they are kind of in that like dangerous, not good, but still dangerous. So like this is a very, very tight American League this year, very competitive. Detroit just took it to the Mariners. Like the Tigers are maybe not going to make the postseason this year, but they are definitely on the upswing. There's a lot of arrows pointing up. I think there's really only 2 arrows pointing down entirely. There's a lot of arrows pointing up.
I agree with you. With that being said, I'm still enjoying watching games. I'm still enjoying like watching Shane Baz work things out. I'm not enjoying Taj Bradley, being terrible the last 3 starts, but seeing guys work through things, and I almost wonder. Again, you wonder about the motivation, but for the younger guys that are they know they're definitely part of the future to work through some of these more, some of these downturns in low pressure situations. Like games, I don't think they're playing like it feels like they're playing like they're out of it. Like, they probably still think they're in it, and you have to tell yourself that. But getting to work through things where like, okay, Shane Baz, you can see him, work through his different pitches. We're going to try to stretch him later in the game, doing things that maybe Kevin Cash would manage a different way if we were in a wild card spot or if we were in a division race. So I'm enjoying that, right? Like you're getting free development games.
You're getting to see Manny Rodriguez and Edwin Uceda in like super high leverage.
And that's something that, like at the beginning of the season, I know you were really high on Manuel Rodriguez. I was really high on Edwin Uceda. And like to see them get
scoreboard, we nailed it.
I know we
nailed
did.
it. We nailed it.
But to see like, yeah, in a world where the Rays are competing for the division, Jason Adams not traded, and you know, like the bullpen looks, they might have added another arm and pushed those guys either into AAA or into the B bullpen. And so it's nice to see those guys, because I think those guys are going to be back next year. They're part of the, you know, relievers are part of, you know, can't really project more than 1 or 2 years, but they're part of the plans.
Right.
And
it's a good base to work from. Yeah.
And like
Jeffrey Springs is another one. You know, Springs, like you mentioned, Boz. Jeffrey Springs, the same thing. His last, you know, he's had a couple rough starts, but like with Springs, the talent's there. It's so tough to come back from Tommy John surgery. It's so tough to work, you know, everything. He's just getting the muscle memory back. He's getting, you know, it's going to take time. And his last start was great. He went a little further into the game, and we're going to see that, you know, this is like Glass now before, and like several pitchers, a lot of pitchers before. You basically, that first season back from Tommy John, it's nice to have these guys get this time, these 2 months with Boz and Springs, because this will probably be their worst, and then next year they can be, you know, building off of that. And we'll talk about this, I think, but like there is some, you know, innings limitation still next year, but like a lot of the rust will be off for next year, so that the innings that they will be able to throw will be much better, because they're working through that now, and they will have a full off season, training, workouts, pitchers and catcher, you know, like it'll be all back to normal next year. This is the weird year, and now they can get that out of the way.
I like Cole's comment here that the pitching being so good makes the awful bats hurt even more. I feel that, because I find myself looking at like the Rays lineup, and we're going to get into it about what we, you know, think the outlook might be for 2025. But I'm of the opinion that almost everyone on the active roster for the hitters, the position players, it won't be the case, but that almost all of them will be back next year, at least a part of the plans for 2025. And so I'm looking at all these guys, and I'm like, man, if Taylor Walls just hit a little bit more, you know, he came through with like 1 extra hit a series. You know, we're looking at
one hit a series. I'll start with 1 hit a series.
1 hit a series, not 1 extra. One hit.
What extra? Where's the extra?
Alex Jackson, who I do want to give credit to, because he has been hitting better. You know, it's like, man, if he just hit 1 more home run a month, I would feel so much better about it. It might change the outcome of a game. You know, like I'm doing that with everybody in the lineup, and that's the truth. Yandy Diaz still hitting, still doing what Yandy Diaz does, but just not at that same level. And maybe he's just getting older. Who knows? Like Brandon Lau's the only one who is just consistently the best out there. Christopher Morel, like we want him to hit the ground running. He hit 2 home runs, and now it's like, okay, now he's looking like Christopher Morel. And so I'm just wondering. I
wouldn't even say that. Like he is the worst version he's ever been in any point in his professional career. This stretch, like this is the longest stretch between extra base hits he's ever had.
That's crazy.
Like this is the most strikeouts and the least walks he's had in like any stretch. Like, so this is not just a bad 2 weeks. It's the worst 2 weeks he's ever had. It's still just 2 weeks. It's just still 2 weeks, but it's like, that's, I think the hardest part of this lineup right now. And I agree with you. Like when I keep making this comment, because like the lineup card comes out, like this is the cycle for the last weeks, I guess. The lineup card comes out, and I look through it, and Cash does some, you know, interesting, you know, he moves Johnny DeLuca up, he, you know, moves some stuff, and I go, it's not bad. Like it's interesting. Like I'm seeing like some interesting stuff. Like you get like a couple of guys down here where it's like, you know, like these guys have good contact ability. These guys have like some pop. You have like Jose Siri in the 9th hole. It's like a nice, like great defense, can run into a home run. Like that's not a bad spot to be. And if he gets on base, he can be a terror. And then you watch the game. It's the worst offense you've ever seen humanly possible. Like everybody's just flailing. Middle of the game, like people just seem like they are like, I've seen a couple of Jose Siri at bats where like he just feels like he is in pain. Like he just is like just swinging, just frustrated,
Right.
just like whatever, just like get me out of here. Like I'm desperate to not be here. And you just go like, good Lord, this is the worst offense I've ever seen. And then the next day, the lineup card comes out, and you're like, I mean, this isn't terrible. Like I'm like looking at this.
Darby, yesterday when the lineup came out, I said, you know what? I think this is like the best lineup we have right now. Like I feel really like, this is a good group of players. 1 run, 2 hits.
Yeah. I said literally like this is a solid lineup. You have like probably our best like 1 through 5. You then have a couple of good contact guys in the middle. You had like DeLuca and Rortvedt. It's like guys that can at least make some contact. You then had like Walls and Siri at 8-9, which and their defensively
the lineup was awesome.
Yeah.
You have DeLuca and Siri both in the outfield. You had Josh Lowe in left. Christopher Morel was not on the field. And Christopher Morel defensively, he is who we thought he was. I mean, he cannot play the field.
Cubs fans weren't kidding. That's a mess. That's a mess out there.
Like
so athletic.
That is something that I think I'm very high on Christopher Morel still.
Yeah.
But I think we would be really silly to think that his defensive issues and his lack of a defensive home is not a big problem for the Rays moving forward.
I agree.
I mean, I think of like eventually there'll be a big problem that they're able to address in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
Pick a position that they really want him to work at, whether that be first or second or left or right or whatever. I think he's got a decent arm, but I tend to think with an offseason, the outfield might be his best spot, maybe a better use of his athleticism. He doesn't need to worry about footwork or anything. But that is a problem that the Rays will have to address. I'm not saying it's a problem they can't fix, but I think that is one of the bigger things they need to address this offseason is what do you do with Christopher Morel?
He needs to find at least a home where he can not do too much damage. And I think they found that with like Harold Ramirez, but you don't want somebody that's an anchor at DH. You want to be able to cycle through guys, but he can, if he plays DH most of the time, but then can like maybe play some right field and not be, I mean, the Rays have played Harold Ramirez in right field, right? So I think like the bar is very low. And I think I agree with you. Full off season, I just think like you can get something out of him in the outfield.
I hope.
Yeah.
And let's keep rolling with the 2025 talk and what the plans may look like. I'm of the opinion right now that if the Rays choose to not trade Yandy Diaz and pick up Brandon Lau's option and not trade him, they could basically run it back and be a postseason team again. If they are to trade Brandon Lau or Yandy Diaz or both, I think there needs to be like some payroll added in some way, bringing in guys via trade or via free agency. Because if your best hitter, like if your 3 best hitters next year then are, Junior Caminero, Christopher Morel, and Josh Lowe, I don't think that's a winning recipe in 2025.
No.
But I'm of the opinion if you keep Yandy Diaz, if you keep Brandon Lau, and you add maybe a bench piece or a guy that pushes one of your current starters to the bench and replaces a Curtis Meads roster spot or be it a 4th outfielder, an extra infielder, whatever it is. I still think there needs to be additions there. There probably needs to be some shuffling in the bullpen, some more, maybe one more starter brought in. I think this team is right there again. I think, again, we talk about guys just needing to hit a little bit more. I think Taylor Walls with a full off season where he's not coming off a hip surgery probably hits a little bit better. I'm not saying he's going to be even league average, but he
can't hit a lot worse. Can't hit a lot worse.
That's true. I think Josh Lowe, just a healthy off season, healthy spring training. I think he's better than what he looks like right now.
And he's looked better in the second half.
Yeah,
he has looked better in the second half. Yeah. Still some issues there, like still some like pitch recognition issues, still not damaging middle fastballs. Yeah, and that is the big concern with both of the Lowe brothers, right? Nate Lowe had the same issue, got better at it. Josh Lowe got better at it, but like really, like if you can't hit 95 plus, you are gonna get destroyed in the majors. You'll never be able to survive. Just period. Like everybody throws like 98.
And I think, but if you keep Junior Caminero as the fourth or fifth best hitter on your team in 2025, he might be better than that. But if you're planning for him to be, doesn't have to be the best hitter, because with Junior, he is a very talented prospect, the best power hitting prospect the Rays have ever had. And with that being said, another one of the great power hitting prospects the Rays had was Wander Franco. He also had like an 80 grade hit tool. He had no offensive holes. Junior Caminero does. He's going to be, I think, very productive. I think I'm very excited for his career. But he is not going to be the perfect hitter. And he's definitely not going to be the perfect hitter right away. So I think keeping this core together is a recipe for success in 2025. You're bringing Shane McClanahan back. I know there's going to be innings limits, and you never really know what you can expect after a second Tommy John surgery, but guys are coming back from 2 Tommy Johns. I mean, Drew Asmussen's back from a 3rd elbow surgery.
Yeah.
The surgeries are getting better. Like I'm not too worried about that. I think this team is kind of just like they did this year, a run it back campaign type of team. Darby, am I like just drinking the Kool-Aid with this group? Because I know you might be a little more pessimistic on 2025.
I don't think you're drinking the Kool-Aid too much, and I actually don't think. I think you're dead on with what the strategy will be going into next year. I don't think this is a division competitive team. And I don't know if there's moves that you can do to make this a division competitive team in 2025. Postseason's different, right? Wild card, it is a wide open field. And I do think this offense, and I think where I will say, like, I think we do have a little difference of like how good this team can be in 2025. And I am a little bit more pessimistic than you, especially with the offense. I don't think you're off base in thinking running it back can have much better results, because while this is the lowest performing offense in the second half, the 3rd worst run scoring unit in all of baseball this year, like all year, the other offensive metrics are not like terrible. And that's what's weird. Like on the season, this is a 100 WRC plus team as a team, which is fine. It is league average, right? That is perfectly acceptable. K rates are bad, but not horrific. Walk rates are mediocre, but not awful, not great. But the BABIP is not even like atrocious. It's like kind of middle of the pack. So it's not even, they weren't getting that lucky. The hard hit rates are really bad. I think that's a huge problem. They're not barreling the ball. They're not putting good contact on the ball. But like none of their, like they're the top, like I think they're in the top 5 of stolen bases. So they're a very good base running team. The offensive metrics paint the picture of a team that's probably 15 to 20 in run producing, right? Like not the bottom 10, but not close to the top 15,
right?
Like kind of in that like middle of the pack range, which if this pitching is as good as it has shown, like Cole kind of mentioned there, like if this bullpen is as good as they have been, and we expect them to continue to be, that's plenty of offense, right? Like middle of the pack. If this team added like this whole series, like there was 1-run games and 2-run games where the other team scored 2 runs. There's been so many series losses, or not a series losses, but like losses in series where you could have had a sweep instead of a series win. They still only have 1 sweep on the season. And that's where all those series wins in a row just didn't go anywhere, because they were just gaining a game every single series, like just gaining a game above 500 and then losing. But there were so many of those games where just you add 2 runs, it's now a sweep. You add another run, it's a sweep. You had 3 runs and it's a sweep. And so I agree. Like this offense, if you look at on paper, the performers that they have, if you look at the way they performed, the biggest like red flag, the biggest thing that's a problem is scoring the runs, which is the most important part of the game, but it's not the predictive measure. That's the result.
Right.
So all the predictive measures, all the things that are happening, there is some bad luck. It's not just in batted ball, but it is in the sense of like, all right, this is, somebody got on base, somebody stole a base, this person now gets out. The next time up, Brandon Lau hits a screaming double. If he did that before, if Yandy Diaz hit like a screaming double the last at bat, that's 3 runs. But then he grounded out weakly. Then next at bat, he does hit the screaming double, and then it's just a person on second.
Yeah.
It's like Alex Jackson hits a double with nobody on base. The next time up, he strikes out with 3 in the opposing batter's box. It's been a lot of sequencing, which is not something that you can like fix, really. It's like hit your extra base hits when people are on base. Don't hit them when there's nobody on base. That's not a thing. It's not a thing that Chad Mottola can say. He should say it. Just why not? But like, it won't be a thing that you can do. You can't teach that.
I mean,
hey guys,
the thing is,
why don't you get a goddamn hit? That should be the game plan. The next series is just Chad Mottola with like a heater and a glass of whiskey and being like, why don't you guys just save my damn job and get a hit?
I'm just thinking of like Billy Bob Thornton and Bad News Bears. A little, that's Who's on Horse crossover there. Let me clarify. Like, I don't think this team is going to be in it for the division. I have a hard time right now, really. The Orioles are a well-oiled machine, but I also have a hard time seeing the Rays compete for the division while Soto and Judge are still in their primes and they've got a healthy Garrett Cole. Because you look at the Yankees and they made a great deadline addition, I think, in Jazz Chisholm, although now he's hurt and could be out for quite some time. But they have 2 superhuman hitters. Mm-hmm. I mean, 2 of the top 3, maybe they're the top 2 hitters on the planet. And they're right in the middle of their lineup, and they produce enough for the entire lineup. Because if you look at the guys who are like getting a ton of plate appearances, Alex Verdugo, 87 WRC plus. Oswaldo Cabrera, 88. Anthony Volpe, 94. Jahmai Jones was playing for a little bit. Like, he stinks. Ben Rice, John Birdie, Gleyber Torres, all below league average hitters. Like, it's not too far off from the Rays lineup. And when the Yankees got Soto and the Rays lost their one guy who was in Dominican court this year, like that was their one, or today, that was their chance to be able to keep pace, to have a superhuman type hitter. And when that happens, I don't even worry about like playing the same level of baseball as the Yankees. But they might lose Juan Soto this offseason. Maybe the Rays will sign him. That'll fix it. Chad Mottola is going to come in with that idea to the office tomorrow. Listen, guys, I have an idea. I don't think they're a division contender, but I don't think that's and I'm not saying that you're saying this. I don't think that's a reason to like not try. And I think, in my opinion, trying is running it back and adding on the margins. That's fine trying for me. But what I don't want to see is the trade of a Diaz or a Lau or a both. And then the answer to replace them is, Curtis Mead, Jonathan Aranda platoon. Like, I'm at the point where I'm not out on those 2 players. But we've talked about for a while on this show that you see good major league players, or like guys that deserve to be on a roster, not be able to break into the Rays, have to be DFA'd or just traded for peanuts, and then become regulars on other teams. I mean, you look at like Xavier Edwards was a guy coming through, and Greg Jones is going to get some run with the Rockies. Like, these guys are good enough to play Major League Baseball, but the standard it was raised for so long with the Rays of like, it's really hard to break into this team because it's full of really good players. And to see Jonathan Aranda and Curtis Mead, like, if that's the plan at second or first, or mix and matching, like, I would feel pretty uninspired in 2025. If they like say they decide like now's the time to trade Yandy, they get a good offer and they go out and they just throwing out a name, Pete Alonso, right? Like, they signed Pete Alonso and then they sign another guy to play defense. Like, okay, now I see how we can replace Yandi's production. And I see what we're doing. We're just cashing in on Yandy. I'm not saying they can't trade those guys, even though I'd like to see them not. I'm saying don't trade them, and then the replacements are the guys that we have around. Like, to me, that would be an uninspiring set of decisions going into 2025.
So that's where I will say the one thing you mentioned was like, if they keep Yandy and Lau, this is, still a playoff contending team. My only pushback there is I do think you can trade. I think you can get rid of one of them and still be fine.
One?
If you do, I would do Yandy. Yeah, I would do Yandy. Yeah. To be perfectly honest, I think Brandon Lau's bat is the biggest special difference. I think Yandy Diaz is a very good hitter. I'd keep both, just because I think for Yandy, I don't think you can get a $10 million bat to replace that. I don't think Pete Alonso is going to be multiple years.
The floor is pretty high with Yandy. He's going to strike. He's going to walk over 10% of the time. So the on base threshold is pretty high.
If you were, but I think if there is a possibility, there is a world that trading one of them brings you back a piece again for now that actually could be something useful. That's something there. And I do think you can then potentially replace that position. I agree though. Like, I don't think just a platoon of these two, maybe they'll eventually break through guys. Yeah. I mean, I think the thing with Curtis Mead, he's still extremely young. The bat speed data is good. He just doesn't hit for power. I've never seen somebody like, if he's going to ever be a good hitter, he has to hit for power. We've said this for so long.
He's a fine backup. He's a fine,
I agree.
Short end platoon corner infielder, or maybe play, second and third. Like, and that's fine. That's fine. He's still one of the best hitters in the world, right? Like, this is not tear down Curtis Mead.
No, yeah.
He's in the major
but
league.
It's like, is this a starting? I think you do need to raise the floor of the starting caliber.
Yeah,
I think, and so I wanted to kind of go through the lineup here real quick, and sort of, I want you to tell me, is this needs an upgrade, would like an upgrade, or keep it as is? I'm just on roster resource right now. So the current starting lineup. I'm going to go with what roster resource says.
Yeah,
current starting lineup against a right-handed pitcher. Okay, so they have Yandy Diaz first base leading off.
I'm keeping it the same.
Keeping it the same. Yeah, I agree. Brandon Lau second base, batting second.
Keeping it the same.
He's the sixth best hitting second baseman of all time since integration. I mean, are we kidding me here? Like, again, I've hammered this a lot, but like, this is one of the most special players the Rays have ever had. When he's healthy, this is an elite level hitting. It's one of the best second. I mean, like, the only person alive right now that is a better second baseman is Jose Altuve, and he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. That is the only living second baseman that you can say is like, Joe Morgan's still alive?
I think
he was. Yeah, I think he's like ninth. I think he was below him on the WRC plus list. So still Altuve. Christopher Morel, DH, batting third. Don't worry about the batting order, but like Christopher Morel, DH.
I'd like to. I mean, yes, he's going to DH.
Christopher Morel.
Yeah, Christopher Morel. I'm keeping. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I agree, and I also think like we're seeing the bottoming out, but you can't really like. He has been above average hitter 2 years in over 100 games twice, or over 200 games. So like, we cannot expect this to be the only thing he is. Josh Lowe.
I flip-flopped so much on Josh Lowe. As a prospect, I was not really too high on him. Then as for rookie year, I wasn't really high on him. I was saying he needed to be traded, and then he has a great last year. And man, we were talking about Josh Lowe winning the MVP on this podcast. And
outside shot. It was an outside shot.
I mean, I'm deciding between him or Dylan Carlson, and I think I prefer Josh Lowe.
Yeah, as a starter, I think you have to have. Here's the thing: if it's not that, you trade him.
Yeah,
Like, because I think he's not a bench bat.
No, I agree.
He's a start. He's a starter, or he's off the team. So you're
So
keeping Josh.
I'm keeping him. I'm keeping Josh Lowe. Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, might give away
Okay.
what will happen when he gets to the bench.
Junior Caminero.
Yep, keep.
Yep.
So
that's
at third. At third, he has to be the
third. Yeah, I think he's actually showed some pretty good defense in the 2 games or 2 games he's played.
From what I've seen,
kind of sharp,
and he is sharp. And from what I've seen, and I watched him play some second. And second was kind of a position he was learning this year, and he was from like the game I was there, and I have a pretty good view of being able to watch the infield defense from my seat. Terrible like footwork, it seemed awkward. I didn't know where to be, and there's a lot more work on second base. You're, kind of keeping tabs on the runner at second. You got to watch if a guy steals. Yeah. There's a lot more going on. At third base, you're really just there to knock down the hardest hit ball.
Reaction. It's reaction.
He's got the arm for it. He's got the athleticism, right? He's not the most fleet of foot, but he's an athletic guy. He's a big guy. And so I'm actually very optimistic about his development at third base.
I am too. Yeah, I think that's well said. I think third base is so much more reactive. So if you are you're just like a pure athlete who can just like make that quick reaction, knock something down. You don't have to be the cleanest if you have the arm like he has.
Yeah.
And I think that's very helpful. He's never going to be like a Gold Glove caliber third baseman, but I think not killing you is what you want from somebody that has that prestigious power. Okay. Number 6, catcher Ben Rortvedt, starting catcher.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm keeping him. I really.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 106 WRC plus on the season. Very strong defensive metrics. Like really, really strong.
It's like who?
Metrics. So
we could talk about Jackson, but it's like again we're 2/3 of the way through this lineup. We're 2/3 away from this lineup, and we like
this should be better. This offense should be better. Yeah. So that okay. So now we're getting into it. Because I think the thing with this that we're noticing, right, with the Yankees, if the Yankees had this lineup, but like is the surrounding cast, this is like a 120 win team.
Right.
The problem is the Rays are lacking. I think Brandon Lau is in that like Judge Soto caliber of like elite level bat, but like a step below that because those guys are like
video.
But I mean, he's in that like Rafael Devers, like his numbers career wise match up very well with Rafael Devers. So it's that level. But you can see even with Devers, like you need help. You need some other people. And I think like Yanni's good, but like the rest of those guys not being so you're trying to get 2 quarters to equal, or you're trying to get 4 quarters to equal $1.
Yeah.
And I think the Yankees have $2 and then a lot of like nickels and pennies. Whereas the Rays have a lot of like quarters and dimes. and it's a tough, like you need like maybe the higher floor from each of these guys, and this is where the problem is, you need the whole lineup. And this is where the Rays have produced top 5 offenses before, and including like last year and the year before, is there's nobody that's your black hole. So you're always getting something. Now,
2021 and 2023, we've seen what happens when the Rays have elite offenses. They win 100 games.
Yeah.
If the Rays offense is elite, they're going to win 100 games.
I think they're an easy playoff team if they are a mediocre offense.
Yeah. Just don't be as horrible as you are this year.
Don't be the worst. Yeah.
Again,
Chad Mottola. These are all free ideas. Just come in and be like, you guys try not being the worst and then just, leave again. Like, I think this is at this point in the season. Why not?
That was always a really fun discussion with Florida State football when they were really, really bad. It was the offensive line is like, we don't have to get too good. We just have to get to below average. Just get us to below average, from bad to below average, and we're going to win more football games. It's the same way with this Rays offense.
So here's where the problem starts. Johnny DeLuca.
I think Johnny DeLuca, if he's on your roster, if you're a competing team, he needs to be the the last man on your roster, the
Mm.
Brett Phillips role, the defense and base running role. I think he has to be a true bench player. I just have not seen. There's such a lack of power from Johnny DeLuca, and I know he doesn't need to be a power hitter, but for him to warrant being an everyday starter for me, he has to be able to show that pop. And so I would like to see, that spot improved. I don't think you're moving on from Johnny DeLuca yet, but I would like to see him in a true bench role.
I think he's a solid. I think a really good fourth outfielder. I think he plays very good defense, good speed. But I'm 100% with you. Fourth or fifth outfielder, where you can have him defensive replacement. I think short side of a platoon type of thing. Come in pinch hit against a lefty, but like he's not if he is starting 3 times a week, I think you're missing. That's trouble. Because I think at best he's Manuel Margot. Well, and I think even Manuel Margot is kind of, it's speculative to have that.
That's my question. I mean, would you prefer to have Manuel Margot on this year's team? I'm not talking about who you want in the future, but like you could swap them out 1 for 1, their roster spot this season. I think you take Margot still, right?
Yeah, probably. I think I guess he would definitely produce better. I mean, actually, has he produced better?
He had. Oh, he's still below replacement level. His defense is getting really bad. Defensive WAR grades. He's got an 81 WRC plus, so he hasn't hit well either. But maybe his defense has declined. I haven't really looked into those numbers. If his defense has declined that significantly, but there's also not.
And DeLuca's offense has been really bad, but his base running is quite good, and then his defensive metrics are much higher. So I probably would take DeLuca. DeLuca's issue, and he's young, right? This is his first like full extended season. Is he shouldn't be starting so much, and I think that's your issue. So DeLuca I keep, but he's not a starter.
Manuel Margot, I mean, his sprint speed is 56th percentile now. His range is 11th percentile. Arm strength 21st percentile.
That injury
negative
against
4
New York
runs. I do think he's not old, but he's almost 30. I think. So
speed is such a big part of his game. So once it goes, it's probably curtains. Yeah. So DeLuca shouldn't be starting.
So, but you're more of a 4th outfielder. I'm more of a 5th outfielder.
On
DeLuca. Like
I think he could be a good 4th outfielder. I think we have not seen the best of Johnny DeLuca yet. And I think as a 4th outfielder, short side of the platoon, pinch hit, pinch run, I think he'd be more valuable than just the Brett Phillips role.
Okay, fair.
But not a starter. He should not be starting games like consistent, like penciled in. Then that's an upgrade spot. Taylor Walls, shortstop, and you can say Jose Caballero on this as well. Starting shortstop.
Yeah. Jose Caballero, the starter. I don't know. He's got 2 options left, so I think it's pretty plausible that the Rays bring back. He's got no trade value, like a defense first shortstop that just hasn't hit consistently ever in the big league. So I think he's a guy you keep. We know how good he is defensively in the infield. I know like the 2 big metrics are kind of divided on him, but just watch him play. Like he's very good defensively. And it's not just making the flashy plays either. He makes a lot of really tough plays look really easy. So I think there's value in that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, we can say bump him out of the starting lineup. And, right now the bench is like Alex Jackson, Taylor Walls, Johnny DeLuca, Cameron Meisner. Like there's no impact bat on the bench. Like, is it okay?
Dylan Carlson is still there. Dylan Carlson, who again, we don't know. He's sort of like, this is the free like vet look. This is the like Harold Ramirez got DFA'd. You trade for him and see what you got.
So my answer on Walls though is yes. Like I think he's a good bench option, but I'd also like to see you exploring like keeping him and then always just looking for ways to upgrade and use his options or trade him. So I'm not married to Taylor Walls, but I still do think there is value in having him on your roster. I guess I'm getting to the point where the way I'm forming my hypothetical bench here is I would like to have another, like a true platoon that, you've got impact bats on both sides of the plate and not just, oh, look, we got Taylor Walls. What a great infielder to have fill in every fourth day or whatever.
So we'll get to the bench here. So the last person, center field starter, is Jose Siri.
Yeah, I mean, he's still not in arbitration yet, or this will be his first year, maybe. I think this upcoming year will be his first year. I know what I'm
positive
getting.
WAR player.
Yeah,
positive WAR player.
I know what I'm getting. He's a below average hitter that's going to hit 20 home runs a season and play elite defense in center field. That's kind of right-handed Kevin Kiermaier. I think keep him.
You're always just like kind of wanting like a little bit more from that bat. You're like, this guy shouldn't be this bad. And he had like a stretch where he kind of seemed to be a little bit more under control, and then it's gone back to being, really uncompetitive at bats. The defense is great though. Starting is so the areas where you could see like upgrade spots, I think. I honestly don't think catcher is an upgrade spot. I really don't. I know people want to say that, but I think it's catcher is such there's like 5 good catchers.
There are upgrade options, and if they wanted to make a move, I'd be fine rolling the dice.
But how much money? I mean, like Ivan Herrera from the Cardinals is not a bad option.
I mean, like, again, I don't think the Royals are in a position where they're trying to move on from Freddie Fermin. I think they really like having him with Salvi as Salvi catches last. That's a guy I've been
interested in. He's kind of fading out. Yeah. It's tough. I think Joey Bart. I really wanted Joey Bart, and that's turned out to be pretty good change of scenery candidate. So I would have.
What about Blake Hunt? Isn't Blake Hunt in the big leagues again for the first time?
Maybe. So center field, shortstop, left field, corner outfield is very easy to upgrade. Like that, there's a lot of that available. Shortstop, center field, not as easy. Shortstop is very hard. It's probably second hardest to catcher. And you'd have to look for short term because you do have Carson Williams coming.
I think Jose Caballero is short term.
I agree.
I think he's a really solid player to have now and then for 1 or 2 more years.
So this is the bench right now.
You're paying $6 million now. He probably is worth.
So let's push DeLuca, Walls to the bench. Let's say series starting. So you need a 4-person bench, 1 catcher, Alex Jackson.
I'm gonna throw Cole's comment here so we don't forget. But right now I'm swapping Palacios for Meisner pretty easily in my.
Oh yeah,
if you're looking at the roster, like that's a 1-for-1.
Now here's the thing. Here's a good question though, and it'll be Cole's question. Palacios starting left fielder. How are you feeling about that opening day? Are you? What's your thoughts?
That would be where I'd want to upgrade and potentially push Palacios to the bench. I in the future, I'm viewing Palacios as more of an infielder. I think, like you said, corner outfield pretty easy to. And we know, like the Rays will mix and match, and guys like Palacios will play all over the place. But you can go out, and you can find a corner outfield bat via free agency or trade on a 1 or 2 year, 3-year deal, whatever, or bring somebody in with 2 or 3 years of control. And Palacios can relieve Brandon Lau. You slide Brandon Lau into the DH slot more when Morel plays in the outfield, and you got Caminero at third. And Palacios could play outfield, but I don't know. I like his skills more, and I think I like him as a defender at second base as well. Mm-hmm. So I'm just considering Palacios an infielder when I'm looking at the 2025 roster.
I think as a starter, I don't know if a team like going forward, if you have Palacios and DeLuca as your platoon left field, I think that is fine. I think that's a little disappointing. I think, right. I mean, Palacios is good. Like he's had a great year, on base machine, 14% walk rate, 104 WRC plus.
What about Palacios and like Tyler O'Neill?
Oh yeah, there you go.
I mean,
Just
that's the
all
type of
Cardinals, just all St. Louis Cardinals.
yeah.
I don't mind it. Tyler,
I mean,
get Dylan Carlson in there too. Just like
wasn't that a pretty big split in the D-Rays Bay community like a while ago, like wanting Tyler O'Neill or not, or was that another? Was Harrison Bader?
It was Tyler O'Neill, Harrison Bader, and Randy was thrown out there, but like Bader and O'Neill were like higher up because it was like defense versus pop,
right?
And it turns out both Bader and him like not that great, and then like great once they leave. Again, Cardinals once they leave, Cardinals outfielders after getting out of St. Louis.
So on the bench,
so what is your ideal 4-person bench? One catcher, so Alex Jackson or Renee Pinto.
I'm fine with Jackson, and it's clear that the Rays like Jackson, and it's clear to me because of quotes given by the pitching staff, by Taj Bradley specifically, and Taj Bradley is moving forward as, what's the right way to put this? Because you have Shane McClanahan comes back and he assumes the role of the leader of your pitching staff, right? Even if he's not, I think Taj Bradley projects to be the best pitcher over the next 3 or 4 seasons. In the
with potential, with the injury that
but Taj is the guy they're focused on, and he has spoken about Alex Jackson and the trust he has in him. And if there's one way as a backup catcher to keep your job, it's to have a top pitcher trust you and want to throw to you. It's how Ben Rortvedt kept his job in New York for a little bit last year because Garrett Cole, very particular about his catchers, loved
about a lot of things.
That's true. Start times.
Getting Bailey Crystal off the field so he can get to starting.
But Garrett Cole really likes Ben Rortvedt, really likes throwing to him. Taj Bradley really likes throwing to Alex Jackson. I think that's the best way to keep a job. Should he hit
strong
more?
Defensive?
Sure.
We've also seen, again, it's sort of like the Christopher Morel thing. Like we've seen him literally hit the worst anybody's ever hit in like baseball history. And so you're like, well, okay, he's played baseball before. So like, we know that he's better than this. And the last 15 or so games, he's actually like had some pretty solid hits and pretty solid at bats. He just needs to be the like Mike Zunino light, run into some home runs, play great defense, call a great game.
So my bench would be Jackson, would be Walls.
Okay. So Caballero's starting for you at shortstop.
Starting shortstop.
So Walls is bench, okay.
And then you've got 2 guys fighting for 3 spots, and then maybe only one of those guys gets in if you add a bigger free agent name. And that's Carlson, DeLuca, and Palacios. And I think Palacios is clearly a winner above those 2.
Yes.
And then Carlson he's a switch hitter, but more from the right side, maybe gets a little bit of an edge there over DeLuca. Like I'm not sure the Rays will tender a contract to Carlson. But I kind of like using the last roster spot on him more than DeLuca. And I think that's where maybe
here's my thing.
I know this is small potatoes.
We're arguing about this is really small potatoes, and I think this is where like when the Rays are good, that's a more interesting conversation. I think for me, it's like the left field spot is empty, and we're arguing which of the bench bats, and I'm like, we really need that left field spot to be
when
full.
The Rays are good. Like maybe neither of these guys are on the team though, and you don't worry about it. You don't think. But even when they were good, you had Brett Phillips.
Sometimes when the Rays are good, it's Dylan Carlson and Richie Palacios as your left field platoon, and everyone's like, that's terrible. And then they combine for like 130 WRC plus as a Voltron unit, right? Like they've done that where it's like they have the best first baseman in baseball with like G-Man Choi and was he the right-handed part of the platoon? It was like something like that where you're just like, okay, somehow that's the best first baseman in all of Major League Baseball. Okay, cool. I think Carlson, I've never been a believer in Carlson, but I do think the fact that he's a 25-year-old who is a former 6th, I think, overall prospect in all of baseball, a guy who has had a good season in Major League Baseball. He's had 3 just absolutely awful seasons, getting worse and worse. The Cardinals also have some really weird development. Like they have had some great development successes, but they've DFA'd Adolis Garcia before he had a breakout. They traded Randy, which that's fair. He was a little blocked, but they have made choices on who to keep and who. the trade time. That was a little some extenuating circumstances, but like they have made consistent choices with their outfields, who to keep and who not, and they have been wrong about a lot of those.
Yeah.
Now they've been right about a few, but they have definitely made wrong choices. They've kept Dylan Carlson and DFA'd Adolis Garcia and traded Randy. They traded Randy mostly because they had Dylan Carlson. They didn't trade for, was it Soto the first time because of Carlson? There was or it was like a huge trade thing, and that was like a big sticking point, was including Dylan Carlson. And so like that's not that long ago when he was like a huge like piece. And then the last 3 years he basically was traded for a reliever that was probably going to be DFA. That is, I think at 25 years old, Dylan Carlson, well, I'm not a believer. If he's been very good in a very short stint with the Rays. The Rays have done some things to try to get him to pull the ball more. If for whatever reason he is great, like if the Rays decide to tender him a contract, I'll believe it. I will be okay with that. I will be happy with that. My perfect bench is Caballero, Walls, Palacios.
And you upgrade or shortstop?
And upgrade shortstop.
Okay.
We upgrade shortstop. Now, I am okay with Caballero and Walls as your shortstop platoon, a rough platoon. Right. But I think then you need to, if you're not doing that, I think you need to upgrade. I think you need to upgrade one of left field, shortstop, and center field.
Mm-hmm. And you're looking for a 1 year, 1 or 2 year deal.
I think shortstop would be 1 or 2 year. I think left field could be longer. I think that is, center field could be, okay. Think of center field as the Rays trade for James Outman.
Yeah.
Who is starting to lose space because the Dodgers are just like adding pieces. He had a rough year this year. Very good defensively. He could basically just be the new Jose Siri, and Jose Siri is traded for.
What does a 1 year deal for Willy Adames look like? Way too expensive. A 2 year deal, like 2 years.
I mean, I would love that. But like, would Willy Adames do that? Like, his value is better now than it would be any other time. Like, he would not go back to the Trop.
He's going to sign a really big contract, I think.
Yeah, he's had a good year, and shortstops are hard to come by.
Yeah, he is. And
the Dodgers will
great.
Sign him.
Yeah,
like
they should. He would be a lot of fun with the Dodgers. But he's earned this, but he's probably going to make more than like what he'll be worth at the end of the contract. And yes. Really good players earn that. Like, you get to that level where you do start being paid for past production.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think the trade market.
I want to see.
The free agent market's great, but you can always do a trade, obviously.
I think getting an upgrade. I think shortstop's the hardest to upgrade. It's the area of biggest need, but I don't hate the idea of having Caballero and Walls. It's a rough setup, but you can have like a pretty big punt position, especially because I think they have some defense. And I think Caballero is a pesky enough hitter, and Walls, God, he should be some, like, I'm shocked at how bad he is at offense and has been his entire career. Like, yeah. I really do. We've talked about this. I feel like the bat is something, should be something more than this.
Yeah. I think there's some interesting shortstops out there. Ezequiel Tovar. I wonder if the Rockies would consider. He's still really young, so I don't know. Maybe they don't want to trade their starting shortstop.
They don't want to trade anybody.
Ha-Seong Kim, I would really like.
Would be amazing. Now that would be amazing.
I know his hitting has
and short deal
taking a little bit of a hit this year. He's only hitting like 228, and I think his power has gone down a little bit too, but. Still very good defensively, and you can move him around. You could play Walls at shortstop and him at second. You could do a lot of fun stuff. So I don't know. I think it's harder to upgrade on shortstop. The cost of that might be. There's no such thing as a bad 1 year deal, but that's why I think I'm more happy with Caballero and then looking for the Tyler O'Neill type.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, we've talked about guys that are on the roster now. Are you looking at a Slavis Basabe at all? Are you looking at an Austin Shenton at all? Are you looking at a
I don't
Nick
want to be
Schnell
looking
or
at
a
them.
yeah, like a Nick Schnell, a Tristan Peters, a Bob Seymour, right? Like there's other than Williams, Isaac, Simpson, and Morgan.
Mhm.
And those are guys that I mean, Trey Morgan's still in what? Like low A? No, he's in
Yeah.
high A.
Those are all double A guys except for Morgan. And I don't think they touch the majors until 2026 or late with like maybe Carson Williams and
Carson
Chandler
Williams could be
Simpson
like
late
2025.
2025. It's like second
Chandler,
half post trade deadline 2025.
Chandler Simpson, I don't know. I feel like he could be one of those that gets called up like tomorrow.
It's possible.
He's one of those that
it would
I
help
feel
the
like
contact. It would help the contact.
Yeah, I think like he would be valuable on this team if they decided to like call him up. I don't think that's what they're doing. Like they did it with Junior for a week last year, calling him up straight from Double A. But there's nobody else knocking on the door, right? That is could fill in for injury, right? Like you keep Basabe and Shenton and Mead, Aranda and Pinto. I don't think all 5 of those guys will be back. Their 40-man spots might be too valuable, but they're guys that can come up if you have injury. Yeah.
And I actually do think ideally in an ideal world next year, Johnny DeLuca is a starting center fielder in Durham to start the year.
Hope so.
Like I think Palacios is on my major league bench, guaranteed. He is my top utility guy. Yeah. I think Jose Caballero is right there with him. I think those 2 guys are very valuable and they can play a lot of different positions.
And they're good guys. Like they seem good clubhouse guys.
They're good club. Yes. I think that's the other thing is they're energy guys. And I think this team is really missing Richie Palacios right now. Really, really bad. Yeah. I'm fine with Alex Jackson. I really am. And so that last bench spot is if it's Carlson, if they think there's like, if he can be a real major league player and they think they can unlock something, great. If they don't, I kind of trust their internals on that. But yeah, I think like that last bench spot, I'm not like too worried about it. I'm mostly looking at, I think ideally it would be nice to have like Jonathan Aranda in that spot, like as a hitter. I think I trust him more than Carlson. But I want him as a bench guy, right? Like I want it as like somebody that can come in as another lefty, right? Because like I think that's still a problem that the Rays have is you have Josh Lowe. Left field, I think that's the area to me that I'm circling as I want to see an upgrade there. I'm also looking at center field with Siri as like you do have to take a really hard look at center field. And if you can get something like I really do like circle and underline James Outman as like the Dodgers and Rays matchup. That is a guy that you could bring in as your like Jose Siri replaced Kevin Kiermaier as like he's gonna get the keys right away. And we're going to go with it. And we know the defense is there. We think the bat can get back to being good. That I think could be an option there. But I think it's still a tough thing to upgrade. But I could see this team being done with Jose Siri, similar to Kiermaier in the sense of like, it would need to be another defensive ace, but they just think like the bat is not going to get to there. I think
I really wish we had gotten Dalton Varsho. He is the perfect Ray.
He would be perfect right now.
Stuck in Toronto.
Not being used creatively either, which is a real shame.
I know.
He would be getting catcher spots. He would have gotten at least 3 starts at catcher.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe call the Astros again. See if they want to send us Jake Myers, right? Just do another.
Just keep doing it, yeah. Keep cycling through.
Wow, we hit an hour, and we didn't even get to talk about 2026 and 27, and maybe we do that next week because I don't know if there's really going to be more interesting baseball to talk about. We didn't even get to the pitchers.
Well, I think next week we should talk about like pitchers because I think there's a lot to discuss there because I think we're all very excited about the pitchers next year, but I'm as a preview, I have cold water, and my biggest nerves of 2025 is not the pitching talent.
Okay.
but some limitations. So
Yeah, sure.
I think people are getting a little too over their skis with prospects and penciling in
crowning
this
the
rotation.
crowning the Rays as having the 2025
People are
best
penciling
staff.
in a amazing ALCS starting like lineup,
Yeah.
like game 1, game 2, game 3, game 4. I just a little preview. I'm bringing some cold water to the party.
Okay, fair. But you'll have to wait and see next week. We'll talk about it then. That's going to do it for this week's episode of Raise Your Voice. If you're watching us on YouTube and you haven't already liked this video, hit subscribe and turn on those notifications so you can join us when we go live. Make sure you do that. We're also available wherever you get your podcasts. Listen on Apple Podcasts, leaving a rating and review is the best way to spread what we do to more and more Rays fans. And if you really want to say thank you, patreon.com/raise your voice, where you can become a member for as little as $1 a month. As always, make sure to head on over to draysbay.com to check out all of that great Rays coverage. Once again, thank you guys for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.